Somewhere under the sand of a workers' village in Egypt, archaeologists found a toilet. A real one. A limestone seat, polished smooth from actual use. And here's the flat, ugly truth about it. That toilet did not kill anyone by itself. It built the machine that did. We're starting at that limestone seat, and we're ending inside a 3,000-year-old bladder, where scientists found the fossilized eggs of the parasite the bathroom put there. That's the whole arc. Let's build it, piece by piece. Along the way, a farmer wading barefoot into a canal because that's just Tuesday. A doctor writing down that blood in a boy's urine is basically normal, like losing a baby tooth. A treatment that made total sense and did absolutely nothing. And a snail, an actual snail, that turns out to be the real villain of ancient Egyptian sanitation. None of it looks like a crime scene. All of it is one. Let's go. Here's the assumption you're probably carrying into this. Ancient toilet. So basically a hole in the ground, maybe a pot, gross but harmless. The kind of thing you'd wrinkle your nose at and move on from. That's wrong in a specific way. It wasn't harmless. It also wasn't even really about the toilet. The actual danger in ancient Egyptian sanitation had almost nothing to do with the seat people sat on, and everything to do with where the water went afterward. Follow the water. But follow the water, you first need to know what the seat itself looked like. At Deir el-Medina, the same walled workers' village we've talked about before, archaeologists found limestone toilet seats, a curved slot cut into a block of stone, set over a removable pottery vessel or a bed of sand. At Amarna, the short-lived capital built by Akhenaten, they found the same idea in wood. You sat down. Gravity did its job. Someone, later, emptied the container. Step 1, done. Step 2 is a lot less comfortable to think about. What did they use afterward? Not paper. Paper doesn't exist yet. Excavators have found smoothed stones, broken bits of pottery called ostraca, and wads of plant fiber near latrine areas clearly meant to be functional, not decorative. Cheap, reusable in some cases, definitely not sterile in any case. Which sounds like a small detail. It isn't. Every reused stone, every unwashed piece of pottery passed hand to hand, is one more small bridge for whatever's already living in your gut to reach somebody else's. But that seat, and the stone you wiped with, were themselves a luxury. They show up in a purpose-built royal workers' village and a pharaoh's private city. Places with resources, servants, and someone whose actual job was carrying the waste away. Most Egyptians were farmers spread along the Nile floodplain, and for them, the bathroom wasn't a room. It was a field, a ditch, the riverbank, whatever patch of ground was closest when you needed it. And that casual outdoor habit is exactly where this story turns dangerous. Because Egypt didn't have a sewer system carrying that waste safely away from anyone. What waste there was usually ended up in one of two places. Spread on the fields as fertilizer, which sounds practical until you think about what's actually in it, or washed, eventually, into the same irrigation canals that watered the crops, filled the water jars, and gave kids somewhere to cool off in August. One system. Drinking, washing, farming, and disposing of waste, all running through the same network of channels cut off the Nile. That's not a hygiene oversight. That's the entire Egyptian economy. Because that same water carried everything, Egyptians were in it constantly. Farmers stood knee-deep in flooded fields for hours, planting and irrigating barefoot because shoes were a luxury item too. Laundry got done at the canal's edge. Cattle were driven through it. Children played in it. If you lived in Egypt, contact with slow-moving fresh water wasn't occasional. It was baked into an ordinary Tuesday. The exact same casual habit as walking to a field to relieve yourself, which is precisely where the next piece moves in. That piece is a snail. A small, unremarkable freshwater snail living in those same canals, hosting a parasitic flatworm called schistosome. The worm's larvae, called cercariae, don't wait for you to drink the water. They swim straight to bare skin and burrow through it in minutes. No bite required, no wound you had even notice. Once inside, they travel through your bloodstream, mature into adult worms living in the vessels around your bladder and intestines, and settle in for years. This isn't a stomach bug. This is a tenant that moves in, pays no rent, and leaves a mark you can actually see, which means someone wrote it down. The Ebers Papyrus, a medical text from around 1550 BCE, describes a condition called AA, blood appearing in the urine. and lists it almost casually alongside dozens of other everyday ailments. Some evidence even suggests Egyptian doctors treated blood in a young boy's urine as an expected stage of growing up, something closer to a rite of passage than a warning sign, which means an entire civilization had a name for the symptom and still had no idea it was a parasite eating its way through the bladder wall. So they treated it the only way they knew how. Egyptian medicine leaned hard on purging, herbal enemas, laxatives, remedies meant to clear out whatever was clogging the body. And sometimes the bleeding did ease off. But the treatment never touched the actual worm, and it definitely didn't touch the canal outside the door. The very next planting season, the same farmer waded back into the same water, and the same larvae went looking for bare skin again. The symptom went away. The cause never left the village. That's not a treatment. That's a snooze button. Because the snooze button never actually stops the worm, here's the part that makes this a slow killer rather than a fast one. Left alone, those worms can live inside a human body for decades, laying thousands of eggs a day. Eggs that get stuck in tissue, calcify, scar the bladder and liver, and over years quietly wreck organs that were never designed to carry gravel. Nobody dropped dead from this in a week. People just got sicker, slower, weaker for years, and nobody ever wrote down why. But we don't have to guess anymore. Researchers examining preserved Egyptian tissue have found calcified schistosome eggs and immune markers for the infection directly inside mummified remains, in a striking share of every sample studied. The disease wasn't rare. It was closer to background noise, a condition so common that having blood in your urine barely qualified as news. But that just raises the real question. If everyone knew the symptom, why did nobody ever connect it to the water? And here's where we have to be honest with you. We can't put a number on how many people this actually killed, or how much it shortened the average life. What we do have is decades of exposure, a chronic whole population infection, and a mechanism that never really had a chance to break, because nobody in 1200 BCE had a microscope powerful enough to see a worm smaller than an eyelash. Here's the reveal underneath all of it. The bathroom itself wasn't just near the danger. It was the delivery system. Waste containing worm eggs went onto fields or into canals. Those eggs hatched inside snails living in that same water. The snails released larvae that swam back out looking for skin, and the people who got infected went right back to relieving themselves in exactly the kind of place that fed the next generation of the parasite. Going to the bathroom and catching the disease were, physically, the same loop, running on the same water for the same 3,000 years. Here's the part that should really sit with you. This isn't purely ancient history. Schistosomiasis is still endemic in parts of Egypt today, still spread through canal water, still infecting people who wade in barefoot to work a field. The loop that started 3,000 years ago never actually finished closing. That's the loop, start to finish. Thanks for watching this one all the way through. There's another story just like it waiting on your screen right now, so go ahead and let it play.